to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 166. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, I'm talking about my trip to Hawaii.
I'm so excited to talk about this, Cheryl.
Oh my gosh, I actually went.
I know. And I'm excited to talk about this for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
One, because I haven't heard anything about your trip yet. Two, because I helped you plan it a little bit, however many months, March, I think, back in March.
Yes.
So I can't wait to hear what actually happened and what didn't. And three, because we haven't recorded an episode like this also in months. So I'm excited to be back to talking about travel and hearing about cool travel adventures and things like that.
Yeah, so fun. It's been a nice break to be, doing these re-releases. Obviously, my editing load hasn't really changed, but we haven't been recording this podcast in a long time. And that's been nice. And then also I've been missing, I've been missing like getting to talk about travel as much or even travel and life as much. And so it's good to be back and actually talking about a place I went to for reals. I did go on a road trip this summer that did we do planning for it?
I don't think we did. I don't think so. I'm looking on our very detailed spreadsheet that has all of the different episodes, because that would have happened after we planned Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. And no, so we didn't.
So no.
So I took a road trip this summer to the Grand Tetons National Park with my husband and my stepson. And we also went through Yellowstone. And so I did get to travel, and it was fun to do another road trip. Like,
I was going to say, you did the same, the year before. So it's kind of a new family tradition.
Yes. Yeah. And road trips, I think, work well with a kiddo and being flexible. And so it was good to do that travel. But I have not been on an airplane in almost exactly 2 years, because it was since my honeymoon. And this was my second anniversary. So it was good to be back on an airplane. But Ryan, have you done any travel, talking about travel, like thinking, dreaming?
And this is, I think, partly why you and I talked about doing the Wish You Were Here episodes, is because there just wasn't as much travel happening because of COVID. So I did actually go on a plane. Let's see, we're recording this in December of 2021. And I went on a plane in October of this year for a really quick trip down to visit family in Southern California for my grandmother's 89th birthday. So I did a long weekend. I took the Friday off and then just flew down on Friday, was there Saturday, most of the day, Friday, all day Saturday, and then flew home on Sunday. So it was a really short trip, but it's the first time I've flown since COVID, and the first time I've traveled anywhere, any sort of trip. Well, I guess I did do one trip out to Spokane to see my sister back in April, I guess. So if you count that as a road trip, I guess I did do that, but I literally just drove to my sister's house and then drove back. So I don't know how much of a road trip that is, but definitely the first time on a plane since February of 2020. So yeah, first time flying with masks, first time with all of those other pieces.
Is that the longest period of time in your life you've gone without flying?
Not in my whole life, but in my recent life, how
about like your adult years?
Probably not all of my adult years, but in my most recent decade of life, for sure. 15 years, maybe, I think it probably has been. Typically, I've done some travel, usually at least one trip a year somewhere.
Yeah.
Some years more than one trip.
Yeah.
In a good year.
I think for me, this 2-year amount, like this 2-year period, I think is the longest probably in my life that I've gone without being on a plane.
Wow.
And even like I have an Alaska Airlines credit card, and which like, you get miles. So
right.
Yay, that's wonderful. But then you also get annually, you get a $99 companion fare, which
right.
You and I were talking about that because I was telling you, like, as a single person, I was like, unless you're like traveling with a friend pretty regularly, I don't know if it's worth it because it's a companion fare. But
right.
The funny thing is, with a card like that, normally it's like a no-brainer because it's like, well, okay, at some point this year I'll be flying, and
right.
I'm sure it will, give me a discount of whatever the ticket price would be, unless you're going to like Southern California, because that's not bad from Washington. But yeah, and so like that's what I used on this trip, because I was like, that's the only trip I'm taking this year, so I just lose it if I don't use it. So even if it wasn't that good of a discount, it would have been worth it. But it was weird last year, like having that benefit and not using it.
Yeah, it's just been crazy. Obviously, people who are listening are aware of the state of things in the world at whatever time you happen to be listening to this episode. But things have just continued to not be normal, and they may never go back to what we considered normal at some point in time. Hopefully they will become more normal, especially around travel. I'd really like to be doing more travel. I actually had a student come in a student who I had last year stop by my class briefly this year. And he was asking, how long has it been since you've been to Slovenia? How often do you go? Because he's part Slovenian.
Oh,
so
sweet.
He was interested in that. And I was like, I haven't been in a while, like 2 or 3 years at this point, because with all the travel stuff. And it was just sort of a sad reminder of all of the wonderful times that I've had there, and the people that are there that I care about, who I haven't seen in a really long time. And in Croatia as well, there's people that I know and care about there as well, and just that whole part of the world. But it will come back at some point. So it will.
Yeah.
But you, Cheryl, you got to travel. And in some respects, and I don't know how you think about it, but in some respects, I feel like it's almost like a honeymoon redo, because you had to change your honeymoon sort of at the last minute. Not that you had a bad honeymoon. I know you and Daryl really enjoyed New Orleans when you went, and you shared about that on the podcast. But also, it wasn't quite the trip you were originally planning. And this wasn't that same trip you were originally planning either. But still kind of a big anniversary trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a lover of travel, like my favorite way to celebrate anything is by taking a trip. So like Daryl and I don't even buy each other birthday presents. We just say like, let's just go somewhere on our birthdays, because like I would rather do that than spend money on a other type of gift. But for anniversary, I'm like, my favorite way to celebrate would be taking a trip, ideally. So last year we did a weekend away, and that was really fun. I got a new job a couple months ago, and so now I work in the hospitality industry. And so leaving in December is an absolutely horrible thing to do in my job. So as long as I'm in this job, which I think is going to be a while, I will not actually be traveling on my anniversary anytime soon. They were like, January, that's a great time to go. So I'm like, you know what? It'll still count. I could do a trip,
for sure.
So I don't know if it's every year. It's probably every couple of years or so. But it does feel like, even if we hadn't had that weird last minute change with our honeymoon, I would probably still want to travel, but on our anniversary. But then I think on top of that, it's like, well, let's just keep making it, making it up. So but I mean, it felt like a very similar, I think our travel style was very similar to our honeymoon, where it was like really chill there. Like I said, after my honeymoon, it was like in New Orleans, there was nothing in particular that I needed to see or do. There was nothing, if I didn't do it, I was going to feel like the trip was a waste or ruined or, anything like that. And yet we did do things. We were aware of what we could do, but didn't like make particular plans and just like saw where the day took us, and also like rested and took naps. And then also, this is a specific one, just with this time of year being early December, watched a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies because Daryl and I are both lovers of bad movies.
I didn't know Daryl liked them as well.
He does. And so that was something we did on our honeymoon, which is a really funny thing to be like, oh yeah, we watched like a significant number of Hallmark Christmas movies. So now there's like this little, perfect. I think I already enjoyed them, but then because we did that on our honeymoon, it feels like it's like a really fun, like reminiscent thing.
That's so funny.
The second Airbnb we stayed in had cable television, and so we watched probably like 5 or 6 of them just in the evening as we're like chilling and kind of winding down from the day. And so so that was pretty funny too. So yeah, it was, I think, a similar pace, and we only had one thing scheduled for the whole trip. And everything else was just like we decided what we wanted to do. It was lots of outdoor things or restaurants or stuff that you didn't really like plans for or tickets for. So that felt very similar, and I loved it because we were both pretty tired, and so it was nice to get some rest. So
good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think I'm curious about 2 levels of things with this. One is how much of what we talked about months and months ago during the planning ended up paying off or being a total dud or whatever. And then the other is just sort of, what's the overview of the trip? Where exactly did you end up going? I know you and I have talked a little bit, where exactly did you stay? Did you rent a car? Just the mechanics of sort of those things. And maybe you want to do them in reverse order, giving the overview first and then talking through. But
I mean, I don't remember exactly everything that we did in our planning episode, but it definitely helped a lot. Okay. I think at the time I was not sure, do I want to spend like half the time in Hilo and half in Kona or somewhere in between, or just one and then drive and all of that. So what we ended up doing is we did do half in Hilo and half in Kona. Those are a few hours, or they're a couple hours away on opposite ends of the island. Hilo is on the east side of the island, kind of east southeast, and then Kona is on the west side of the island. And there's there's a highway, not a big highway. There's a highway that goes in a circle around essentially like the border of the island. And so you can drive from one to the other on the north way or the south way.
Okay. And
so that was a plan that I had, was let's go on the north way there and on the south way back, because that way we can like see the whole island, by going there and back. And it was interesting though, because I read recommendations in several places that said, oh, take the north way. It's shorter, but also the roads are nicer and there's less like inclement weather or whatever down there. And it was one of those things where like everybody's interpretation of what makes a road nice or not is different. I thought the whole highway was really nice. It was all paved. There were not hardly any potholes that I saw on the island, honestly, but definitely like not on this highway. It was windy at points, but like a windy road for a little bit doesn't particularly bother me. And it wasn't like, we took some really windy roads, but those were not the main highway. Those were like to little beaches or things like that. But yeah, honestly, I would recommend taking one and then the other if somebody is driving there and then back, because it was fun to see the whole island, and there's such like unique features in different parts, and so that was cool. Also the south one, that's what goes through Volcanoes National Park, so like what are you gonna not go to Volcanoes? I mean, so anyway, I think that was a plan, and that worked out, and we that's what we ended up doing, and that was really cool. Car rentals are really expensive. Have you heard about car rentals being really expensive? Like everywhere.
Yeah, I've heard they're ridiculously expensive.
Yes. So apparently everywhere. And then especially in Hawaii, because Hawaii sold a lot of their cars during COVID.
Oh.
I heard, I don't know if this is true. I heard it was because they weren't making money through the tourism industry, so to make some money. I don't know how that makes sense if like private businesses are owning cars there, but maybe they just weren't being used, so they sold them. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I am a bit stingy when it comes to renting a car. Normally, it's not something I want to pay any money for. And it's just something where it's like I've taken so many trips where either like I'm staying with people or
Mm-hmm.
even in another country, I'm visiting people, or there's good public transit. And so I just don't need a car, or you need it just a couple times. So you take a couple Ubers, and that's still cheaper
Right.
than the rental car. But honestly, if you're going to Hawaii, like unless you're staying in a resort that is an all-inclusive resort where you're like, my plan is to be in this resort, you really do need a car. Like
Mm.
it's just things are spread out. And just because you're staying somewhere, like you're probably going to want to go to the other places on the island and do other things. And there's a lot of remote places, especially on the Big Island. It was really
Mm.
spread out, and there's a lot of areas that feel very remote there. So, but what I did is I was like, okay, this is really expensive. And so I thought, well, in Hilo, we're going to want a car. It's far from the airport, and we're staying in this Airbnb that's like on somebody's property, like 20 minutes from town.
Mm.
So we're going to need a rental car there. So let's rent it for the Hilo part. Then we're staying like a 10-minute drive from the airport, like right in town in Kona. So here's our plan is the day we drive to Kona, we drop off the rental car and then Uber to where we're staying, and then just walk to the beach. The beach is across the street. Restaurants are everywhere. Let's just walk. Let's just be there and hang out there. And if we need like 1 or 2 Ubers, it'll still be less expensive. So that was my plan.
Okay.
So then we're in Hilo, and I start thinking through like Friday's the day when we're going to do this. And in my little planning brain in the back of my mind, I just start stressing about it because I was trying to figure out the timeline of like the time we are supposed to drop our car off versus when we can check in. And that was the one day we had tickets to something too. So it was like, we're going to have to go to that thing and then immediately drop off our rental car. And all of that is happening before we can even check in. And now we have groceries with us and other stuff. So we have all this stuff we're going to have to bring in the Uber. And then not even having been to this building before, like figure all that out. And so I was telling Daryl, I was like, this is just like a tough, it's going to be pretty tight. And he was like, just extend it for a day. Like, let's keep it for another day. What's the big deal? We'll pay some more money. The convenience will be worth it. So I called this like number on your reservation you can call it, and I got it extended. And then on Friday comes, and we're so happy we have the car. Saturday morning, we still have the car. We go snorkeling. That's wonderful. And then it was like, man, it'd be really nice to just have the car. And go snorkeling again. Or what if we want to go to this other beach that's further away? And then we're like, now it's only 2 days until our flight. So really, we're going to like Uber on 2 of these days anyway. And we're like, how much money are we even going to be saving at this point? So I just extended it for the whole time. So really, it's
interesting.
It's what I should have done in the first place. It's just, it sucks paying a lot of money. And then also like gas on top of that. So like, it's not even like, if you think about like your travel budget and you're like, okay, here's how much my rental car costs. There you go. Then you also like have to budget for gas, and gas in Hawaii is really expensive too. It's something where you just have to suck it up, and like, nobody likes paying for a plane ticket either, but you need that to get where you're going. And so it was one of those things where I was like, just if you're going to go to Hawaii, just like consider that a necessary expense, budget for it, and it is what it is. But the convenience of a car for that trip is really worth it. And so anyway, that's my little thought on that. But also, it was
that's good to know.
Yeah, it was just interesting. Like, it didn't feel like a big deal at the time to like, we would drop it off 3 days early, and then when we were there, it was like, gosh, the convenience of going like to any place on this big island is really nice. So.
And in order to extend it, did it cost more to add it as an extension than it would have if you had rented it for the whole time from the get-go?
No.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually surprising.
That's good.
I don't know if that's always the case with every company.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so I learned a little lesson there of just like, okay, it's a time to suck it up, and just like pay it. But there are certainly trips I will take in the future where we'll still not rent a car, but not for Hawaii.
Yeah, not for Hawaii.
So
that's good to know.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, but I made a list.
Of course you did.
I mean,
Is
I
it on
have
Google
several
Keep?
things. It is on Google Keep.
I'm proud.
This trip was so good. And
yay.
it was so restful and so fun. But Daryl and I were like, there were several things we did, and he was like, all right, check it off the Hawaii bucket list, because it felt like a very like, oh, we got to do all the Hawaii things. So I'm just going to quickly read you everything that I wrote down of like the Hawaii things that we did. And then we can dive into specifics. I'm going to screen share some pictures with you too.
Great.
But here's my Hawaii bucket list that I checked off.
Okay.
We saw dolphins, saw a volcano,
Mm-hmm.
went snorkeling,
Okay.
saw a waterfall,
Mm-hmm.
saw the sunrise on the beach, and saw the sunset on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Had a Mai Tai, ate some ahi,
Okay.
had poke,
Right.
saw turtles,
Mm-hmm.
held a gecko,
Oh.
ate some fresh pineapple,
Mm.
went to a black sand beach,
Mm-hmm.
stayed in a jungle,
Oh.
went to church on the beach,
Nice.
ate lobster,
Uh-huh.
laid on the beach, had shave ice,
Oh.
drank Kona coffee, picked fresh fruit from our yard that I got to eat.
Oh.
There was rain and there was sun. Saw some banyan trees, hiked on the coast, held a seahorse, and saw tide pools.
That's
so there's my Hawaii
list.
trip. Yeah.
That's a great list.
So yeah, it was the only thing we didn't do that we wanted to do was we did not go to the observatory on top of the mountain.
Okay.
Yeah. It was right before we arrived. There was crazy rain on that island. And people kept being like, whoa, you're going to hit some rain. And it was like raining sideways apparently and everything. By the time we were there in Hilo, it was raining, but it rains in Hilo a lot. That's why it's green over there.
Okay.
So like we got some rain there, but we expected that. And then there was sun by the time we were in Kona. However, there was snow on the mountain up there. And apparently it was closed when we first got there. So we kind of like wrote it off in our minds as an option. And we're like, okay, I guess we won't be able to go there. It was open the last few days we were there. We thought about going and then realized it was going to be like at least a 6-hour commitment between driving up the mountain. We thought like, well, let's be there for the sunset and then stay and get to see the stars. And you wouldn't need to be there when the observatory is still open. And at that point, we were like, I think we ought to chill a little bit more. So we ended up not going. I don't know if I regret it or not because I don't know what that experience is like. However, it was cloudy. So I don't feel too bad about it because I don't even know really what we would have been able to see. But I got to look at the mountain from the shore. It's pretty, you can see it like anywhere on the island. And so it's a big old mountain right there. But yeah, so that was the one thing. But other than that, really like I got to do everything I wanted to do. And it was really fun. So yeah.
I have to ask.
Yes.
You said you saw a volcano.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see lava?
I did, but I didn't know right away until Daryl told me that I was looking at a lake of lava because it wasn't red.
Oh. Okay.
I didn't do like a lot of like learning about volcanoes before this trip.
That's fair.
So I learned while looking at it and being thoroughly unimpressed that I was looking at a lake of lava. So, I mean, it was really, I feel like it was cool that we got to see a volcano and see a lake of lava, but it was like a pretty unimpressive view, I guess.
It was just a black solid. It looked almost like
with
a
like
paved
steam
over
coming
pool
out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and far away. Like And we went twice because we went on the first day and it was overcast, so we could still see it, but
Mm-hmm.
everything kind of blended with the overcast. And then the day we drove to Kona, like Volcanoes National Park is minutes from the highway. It's like right off the
okay.
highway. So to go see that viewpoint of it is not that far off the highway. So we're like, well, of course we're going to go back, and it's a sunny day. So we start walking out of our car, and then it was like, oh, they're like distinctly in the sky is all the smoke coming up from it, so that was kind of cool to see it contrasted more, but it still was like a little small gray lake far away with steam coming out of it. So
Sure.
I'm sure there's more we could have done there too. We didn't spend a ton of time in the park. I think it depends on when you go for what you can see, and like there were some roads that were closed, so it depends on, like, we were like, oh well, maybe we could drive somewhere else. And I think there were some longer hikes you could do to see more that would be cool. So I think if that was like for you, Ryan, when you go to Hawaii, because I would recommend this trip for you. Like I think you should commit more time to it and figure out all the cool hikes and everything. But
the reason I want to go to Hawaii. Well, okay, there's two.
Yes. The observatory.
And the volcano / lava. Like that's it. Like I don't care about the beach. I don't care about the food.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of those things. Those are the two things I want to see.
Totally. So like here's a picture
pictures
of the lake. And this is like zoomed in.
Oh, it's down. So it's obviously not the hill.
Correct.
And it's not the next thing, but it's the thing down there that's kind of grayish.
Yeah.
Where the steam's kind of coming out of the edge of it.
I think what I was picturing in my mind was like a child's drawing of a volcano.
Well, so here's the thing. And Daryl probably explained some of this to you.
Yes, he did.
But it can be that sometimes.
Okay.
And when I say that I want to see lava, that's what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Right?
you would be excited about this too, I'm sure.
I would also be excited about that. Yes.
But it's not like visually impressive. It's more like that you know what it is. And you're like, oh, that's cool that I get to see this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I got to tell you about these seahorses.
Okay. Yeah, because at one point you were mentioning something. I don't think it was when we were planning. You and I must have been talking about something else.
No, this was very recent. So my family for Christmas, my family, all the like adults in my family as couples do like a gift rotation. Okay. So like one couple has just one other couple. That's all we're giving to, which has been really great. And we've been able to give each other some like nicer gifts. So this year, my sister Katie and her husband Nate had Daryl and I.
Okay.
And one of the ideas I gave them was like for an experience on our trip, because I was like, that would be cool. And we love experiences. So they found this seahorse conservation center.
Okay.
I think that does tours. And so they are so cool. They are, obviously trying to work on like getting the numbers back up because seahorses are an endangered species.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they,
which species of like all seahorses?
I think all seahorses. One of the problems is, there's a lot of, factors obviously contributing to it, but one of them is that they're popular pets. And so people go like who are trying to sell them as pets and take them from the wild and sell them as pets.
Oh.
But they mate for life. And if a pair is separated, both of them die pretty quickly.
Oh.
Like the one in the wild dies and the one in captivity dies. So seahorses as pets only live for like a couple months. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a pretty big problem. So this place, they're also trying to like introduce more species back into the wild. But then also they are breeding them as pets. And so their pets live for 10 to 15 years.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And they're breeding them to be more social, since that's just like a fun thing as a pet. And they're kind of a social animal anyway. And then also they are not monogamous the way they're like just raising them or whatever. And so then I think it's not such an issue when they're like sold to somebody's home.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, and then they're also just working on various like conservation efforts for them. But so we were, as the tour, if you do the tour, you're at a small group, which is, I love a small group. The first thing is we got to see baby seahorses that had like just been born days ago.
And how big are those?
Oh, just teeny tiny, like just little guys. I mean, you can see them and you can see their features, but they're so small. And they have them in these big, like, I want to say barrel, and barrel feels like the wrong word, but it's like these big round upright blue containers filled with water. So it's like a barrel with an open top, but not like a barrel in a video game. And so we each got our own to like stand over and look at them and learn about them. And then we got to go over to the paternity ward where we got to see the fathers. And again, we each got our own barrel to look at. And they are so social. They came up to greet you and would like pop their head out of the water to look at you and just like stay there swimming and looking at you and making eye contact. That's how social they are. Yes. I had no idea.
I feel like that's a pet that you need, Cheryl.
I know. I kept telling Daryl. They can see 15 feet out of the water.
Oh, interesting.
They can like clearly like see you coming. And then so and then their little like mouth that they eat out of, they eat like a straw. So it's like a little round thing. And so like that's out of the water with them, and you can see their little like sucker thing. It was the cutest thing. Also, they're kind of begging because then the next thing we got to do was feed them some of these mini shrimp that they eat. So they knew it was like about time to eat. So we got to put some of the water for them. And then we got to see like some of the seaweed that they eat. And then they talked more just about conservation in general and our responsibility with that. And then they showed us sea dragons as well that they have there, which are so cool. Have you seen a sea dragon before?
Maybe. Is it like a seahorse? They just have the longer frilly things? Yeah,
they look like a seahorse that like added some seaweed as camouflage onto its body or something like that. Okay. So those are very cute. And then the final thing is you get to hold one. And so they have us like thoroughly wash your hands. And then they kept calling it handmade coral reef. And I was like, are we making coral reefs? No, it's you take your fingers, you keep your hands open and you just touch your fingertips together and then you put it in the water. And
so
then
you have your fingers open, separated from each other.
Yes. And your tips touching.
The tips from your two hands touching.
Yes.
So you have like these gaps.
Yes.
In between each pair of fingers.
And then they bring one over to your hands and then it puts its little tail around your finger and like attaches to it and hangs out with you in the water. And it sounded like when they gave us these tickets just like a week before our trip, it sounded cool and I was excited. I was like, oh yeah, that's really neat. And it was exciting. And doing it, I was losing my mind. The whole thing. Them being social and they like hold tails as like a social way of like hanging out with their friends. So you'd see them like swimming around like tails intertwined just as like a cute social thing. I mean, they're just adorable and social and oh my gosh. So yeah, that was fantastic. And that was the one thing we had planned on.
What was it like to have the seahorse wrapped around your finger?
I mean, you hardly felt it. It's very light. So you didn't feel it much. But it was really cool.
So it was more the concept that,
Yes. Yeah, you could feel it, but it wasn't like gripping or anything. Yeah.
I have to ask this question, Cheryl. Is there a picture of you with a seahorse in your fingers and the expression on your face at the time?
Well, I was wearing a mask. So, I mean, for all these experiences, I mean, not the outdoor ones so much, but lots of mask wearing. But there is a picture of me holding the seahorse and you can see the side of my face.
Okay.
This is the little building.
Which, you probably thought was cute just from the get-go.
Yes.
It's sort of that bright blue And there's a giant seahorse with a lei around it on the outside. Like, is that a
Yeah.
wood carving? Is that what that is?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see you being enchanted even before you walked in.
And then here's our tour guide. She's standing next to like a pond with a rock wall behind it. And she's talking about the little tiny shrimp in there that are seahorse food.
Was that a man-made pond?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the rocks look natural, but
Yeah, it's a man-made pond on their
Okay.
property.
okay.
And then we could not take pictures of the babies or the paternity ward. And that was a bummer because that's when they're being real cute and social.
And why couldn't you take pictures?
Well,
of them?
I feel like they're full of it. And
Okay.
I'm a rule follower, so I'm not going to go and take pictures of when they tell me I'm not allowed to. They
Right.
said the whole time there was no flash photography, and I can see that. Like the
Sure, no flash photography makes sense.
But then they said that we couldn't even take pictures. And I think the real reason is so that guests wouldn't be distracted. You know what I mean? Because we're
yeah.
like feeding them and like
Mm-hmm.
hovering over these tiny baby seahorses. So like my guess, it was more about like maybe guest distraction or things like that than
Okay.
any harm that a non-flash photo.
Yeah.
Or like maybe they don't trust people that they really have their flash off at that point with the tiny
Mhm.
babies.
Mhm.
But I don't see how a photo without a flash could actually do anything to them. And they didn't give a very valid reason. I don't even remember the
Mhm.
reason they gave. But anyway, I'm a rule follower. So
yeah.
that's what we did. Here's the seaweed in these big vats. Growing
Okay.
in the sunshine. We
And
got
what's
to
the
eat
point of the
some
seaweed?
to eat it. Well, they eat it, but we
Oh, I
also
was gonna
got
say,
to
you
try
ate
it.
it?
I did.
Oh, okay.
She like said, like, go ahead and try some, and everyone was looking really hesitant. And I think it was because we were like, was that like a tour guide joke, or was it like go try some? And it was like, you try some. So
What'd you think?
it wasn't. I mean, the flavor was good because I like seaweed. That I did not like the texture because it was like not
Wet and slimy.
Yes, it's not dried seaweed like for sushi, you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here's a really big tank with a bunch of seahorses in it.
Oh, that's like a piece of a chain link fence that they have
Yeah.
submerged for them to attach their tails to, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a whole mess of them.
Yeah. It looked like a swarm, if there could be a swarm of seahorses.
And were they moving around a bunch?
Yes. Oh, a ton. It was really hard to get pictures.
Mm.
But they were so cute. Oh my gosh. And these guys too were coming up and saying hi. But look, they're holding on each other just like in all these different ways. Their tails are wrapped around each other. Sometimes one would be like pulling the other one around. It was so funny. Yeah, it was so cute.
Now, all of these ones, are these the ones that they're raising to be pets or to repopulate?
I'm
or-
not sure. I'm not remembering
Okay.
who was going where or anything, or if we only saw the pet ones or what. This was at the end,
Okay.
in the tank.
Those ones look a
Little
lot more
guys.
yellow than the other ones. Is that just the
I
lighting?
think they might be more yellowy, actually.
Okay.
But they're so cute. Oh my gosh. But now I want to know where the video of me holding it is. I'll have to find that later for you. But
Okay.
because Daryl took those on his phone.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was great. Highly recommend seahorse.com and go to Kona and hold some seahorses.
Awesome.
What else do I have to Oh, but Ryan, a huge highlight. This might have this. It's possible this would be the highlight I would choose if you asked me what my highlight was.
Okay.
Was our Airbnb in Hilo.
Okay.
It was truly incredible. This was by far my favorite Airbnb I've stayed in
Ever.
ever. Possibly my
Mm.
favorite, like any like hotel accommodation of any sort I've stayed in.
Wow. Okay. Why?
We were in a little jungle. Like it was
We're
so it was
in a jungle.
it was
This is the one that was on someone's property?
yes. So it's about 20 minutes north of the town of Hilo along the coast, really close to the ocean. It's on somebody's property. So they live there too. And this is like a guest house, which
Okay.
like I will say it can vary as far as like how close is it to your house? What kind of
Right.
guest house is it?
Right.
What like I feel like and pictures only do so much and you can read the descriptions, but it's still like we will see what it's actually like. And this place felt it felt like there was no one anywhere near us.
Really?
And it was truly like a little jungle. At night it was loud with bird noises. And like just like jungle sounds. And
but not in a scary way.
No. So it felt like a white noise machine that has like the different settings. This felt like the like bird jungle setting. There was some of the windows didn't have glass on them. It was like just what
like
mesh?
An opening or screen?
Screen. It was just a screen.
Okay.
And one of them was like, here's out the bathroom. This is just like a screen here where the bathroom window would be. It's a really, really big window with like 2 sinks along it. And then there's just a stream. There's trees and a stream out there. And that is the view. And you could just listen to the water running. It was nice too. Like here's another picture of the bathroom. Just really nice, clean. In the bedroom, it was like a 6-sided room.
Oh, cool.
And out this one window, like where we were, if you sat up in bed, that's where you could see the sunrise in the morning over the ocean. Oh, here's me hanging out with a little gecko friend. There were a lot of geckos and they were so cute. We like geckos because they eat bugs. So gecko fans. They're the cutest little bug killers. But like here's the sunrise in the morning.
Oh, wow. That's amazingly beautiful.
And with the time difference, when it's like 6:30 there and the sun is rising, it's like 8:30 our time and we're kind of naturally waking up. And so it was pretty easy to like wake up for the sunrise.
Nice.
Dude, but this house was just so cool. Here's an avocado tree that was right outside our door.
Oh,
with
wow.
These massive round avocados. And our host said in the instructions, like, feel free to pick fruit and eat it, you know, when it's in season and everything. And so I made myself some avocado toast with avocado
with a
from
fresh
our yard.
avocado.
Yes. Here's
and
like the
it?
living room. Oh, it was delicious. It was a kitchen too. Here's like our coffee cups. But that house back there, that's our host house.
Oh, that's
like
quite a ways away. You can see it when you're looking for it, but it's not close at all.
Yeah.
There's plants and bushes and trees and stuff in the way.
It just felt, here's my little avocado. Well, it's not little.
Oh, no, that's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the shape is very different.
Yeah, they're very circular.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it was just so cool. So we like spent time there. Like we cooked some meals there. One afternoon we took naps and read. And it just was like a place that you wanted to be. And that was so fun for this trip. So
that's very cool.
That was really neat. Let's see what else I want to tell you about. There was a lot of good stuff. We had sushi, which of course we were going to have sushi, but it was very funny to me because there's a sushi place in Renton near where we live called Genki Sushi, where Daryl and I have gone a lot. And on the wall there is a world map and they have little dots where like other of their locations are.
Okay.
And there's one in Hilo. So I was like, we have to go.
Oh, that is funny.
Because there's not a lot in the US. And there's not a ton of locations anywhere in the world, but like, you know, it was so funny. So, but this one actually had it had a screen that you ordered on, and then a tiny little bullet train came to deliver it.
Oh, that's funny. So kind of like a Blue Sea sushi where there's things moving
bar
around.
Yeah.
But in this case, you order it and then it comes to you on that little bullet train. Does it just run around the perimeter of the restaurant?
It just goes there and back, and then you push the button after you got it. And so it just brings you what you ordered.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really fun. We saw a waterfall in Hilo that's like, there's a parking lot, and then there's this beautiful waterfall called Rainbow Falls. Apparently, if you're there in the morning when the sun is shining on it, there's rainbows on the waterfall, which is why it's called that. It was enough overcast that although we were there pretty early in the morning, there
just
not a
wasn't the
rainbow.
direct sunlight. Sure.
Yeah.
Still a pretty waterfall.
Yes. We saw so many birds. That was really fun. We saw turtles 3 times.
3 separate times.
Yes. So we went to this beach in Hilo that our Airbnb host recommended. She said, "Oh yeah, a lot of times you see turtles there." And I'm not observant enough that I would have like necessarily noticed this guy on my own because he was in the water under this rock sleeping.
And he looks pretty big to me.
He was pretty big. Yeah.
Okay.
But Daryl noticed him. You can see the raindrops actually hitting the ocean there too. It was raining pretty hard at that point.
What was the temperature though?
Oh, like 80s.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like going to Florida and having it rain.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
plenty warm. It's just wet.
Here's a really creepy spider that I had to get pictures of for Jack.
Oh, that's an interesting what it's doing with its legs.
Yeah.
It's
Daryl
kind
knew
of
the
an
name
X
of it.
pattern.
I
Yeah, it's
forget
called
it.
a spider. You already said that.
Oh, there's the little like daybed in the Airbnb where I read
Mm.
in the sunshine. Yeah, it was so cool. I think I should actually look up like the specific name of it because if someone's going to Hawaii, like they should stay at that place.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if I ever or when I end up getting there,
Oh, you should. Totally
I would want
stay
to
there.
know what that place is because it
Yeah.
looks great.
Yes.
So.
Here's the volcano on the clear day. So now you can actually see clearly like where the cloud of smoke is, and you can see like the steam.
Now, which volcano is this one?
This is the same spot. This is the same as I showed the
but
other
is this
day.
Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea? I don't remember.
Sure. Mauna Kea, I think, is the big mountain in the middle of the island.
Yes.
So this is the volcano that's at volcanoes. There's the big mountain with the snow on it.
Okay. And that's the one I think where the observatory is.
Yes.
The telescopes
that's
are.
correct.
Right. And I think that one's Mauna Kea.
Yes.
And then so is this maybe Mauna Loa?
Maybe, but then also, what's the name of the macadamia nut brand? Because I accidentally called the mountain that one time.
I don't know. I'm thinking it's Mauna Loa.
It is Mauna Loa, and also that's the name of the macadamia nut brand. So we were both right.
And Mauna Loa also has an observatory, it looks like.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
I don't know if I knew that either. But we both know it now.
Hey. Okay, so that beach where I saw that turtle in the water in Hilo was called Richardson Ocean Park.
Okay.
And there's all these beaches in Hawaii that are just like little teeny tiny ones because, you know, it's like an island. And so there's a lot of public places where you can go to the beach there.
Okay.
And just kind of pull over. And I mean, at least in December, not a lot of people. It was also a nice time to go in December. I would definitely recommend that.
When you said it was still 80 degrees, so it's not like it's cold.
Yeah. And Hilo especially is more of a residential city. And so I loved that a lot because not only is it more green, but there's also like, there's not a lot of touristy stuff and there's just less people going and doing the touristy things. And so like I'm showing you right now this map of Hilo and you can see the ocean line and like there's all these little beach parks along here that weren't that big, but they were really cool and really easy to park at. There was also like,
that's great.
Other than in the main spot of Kona, like where like all the restaurants and the touristy stuff is, on the rest of the island, I don't think we paid for parking. Like paid parking wasn't really a thing we were even seeing much of. Yeah. So that was really nice. It was easy to park places and just get out and go look. And so, yeah, that was really cool. We also saw turtles on the beach that is like known for seeing turtles at it.
I mean, I guess
on
that
the
makes
Big
sense.
Island, which is Honolulu Beach, which is on like the southern coast. And it's a black sand beach, although a lot of Hawaii is black sand other than the sand that they brought in. And so it's actually like there's a lot of black sand beaches over there.
Yes.
So it wasn't like this was the one black sand beach,
No.
but it is a black sand beach. And I mean, when you go on like Google Photos and stuff, you see just photos of turtles. And so this was like one I had starred. And so we drove to it and did see 2 turtles just chilling on the beach. And there's all sorts of signs up about like not bothering them. And in fact, these guys, there are even some cones around them. So I don't know if there's like people that work there and like
interesting
move them based on where the turtles are hanging out. But it was really cool. We weren't that far from them and, you know, got to see some turtles napping on the beach. They were very cute.
Yeah. And what did you think of the black sand?
It was cool. It's a little grainier. And it's so pretty. Like there's such a strong contrast, you know, between that and the ocean and the sky. Like it's really pretty. So yeah, that was really neat. And then in Kona, we definitely went to some good restaurants over there. Especially I want to recommend the Papa Kona restaurant, which is like, I keep saying right in that main area. And let me actually like pull it up to see like, what is it called? But there's this area, you can't really call it downtown because there aren't skyscrapers on this island. And so it doesn't feel like what you'd call it downtown. But it's
I don't think
like,
a downtown has to have skyscrapers.
okay, that's fair. That's fair. But like, it's right where like they have the farmers market and the it's the Kona Kalua area, but it's the Kilauea Bay. And right around that this area here is like some good beaches and then just like solid restaurants essentially and things like that. And so this is right where we were staying. And so it was fun because we stayed just like across the street from the beach.
And that was an Airbnb also, or was that a hotel?
That was an Airbnb. It was a condo. And it was really interesting because it's this condo building that clearly used to be a hotel. And then they sold it as condo units. So the building itself was not great. Like just the like it didn't look that nice or like cared for very much. And they had a million rules as far as like, you can't flush this thing and you can't do like all these things that I wouldn't really break anyway, but I had to like initial that I was going to follow all these rules or be fined. And so it seems like it's a place where it's really up to the individual owner, as is any Airbnb, but like it's really up to the individual owner for how nice your unit is, because like on Google, they had terrible reviews, but this condo on Airbnb is like a 5-star super host and has really good reviews. So that's why I chose it. And then we pulled up and it was like, where is this place we're staying? And so it was fine. Like the unit I was in was fine, you know, but it was like a view of the ocean across the street and like a patio and had air conditioning and it was really the location was like killer. There's crazy expensive parking right around there. And so just being able to stay there, and it was really fun, like being able to like walk to restaurants and walk to the beach and stuff like that. So that was much more for the location as far as like proximity to the things goes, than staying in like a nice place. But there's a lot of hotels along there too and things like that. But we went to this one restaurant across the street from us called the Papa Kona Restaurant and Bar. We went there twice because we went there for dinner, and dinner was really good. And then they had signs about their brunch, and it was like brunch on the sea. And we were like, yes, we will have brunch. And so we went back and had brunch, and it was one of my favorite meals there. I'm trying to find it actually. It was a Benedict, but instead of it was a seared ahi Benedict. So this is like big seared pieces of ahi that were delicious, and then it was on a bed of rice instead of the English muffins. It was one of my favorite meals I've ever had, to be honest with you. It was so good. It was just delicious. And I mean, obviously, like you're on an island in Hawaii, the seafood's going to be really good. But and then like this was the view from our our table. And so it's just like looking at the ocean
so
right
pretty.
there. Yeah. So that was really pretty. And then, yeah, we, on Sunday morning, we decided to go to church at this little church that is like right on the beach. And they have their services outdoors. And right before the service started, I saw something out in the water, and I thought, like, I had been hoping we were going to see dolphins. So I saw something in the water, and my first thought was, it's a dolphin. And my second thought was, no, it's probably someone snorkeling. I'm just getting my hopes up. And then I was looking, and I was like, there are just so many things in the water that would be like a really big group of people if that's snorkelers. So then I realized, like, that's a pod of dolphins, and it was a lot. Here's a video.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton. You can see their dorsal fins kind of come up and go down.
Yeah.
Kind of all together. Oh, interesting. They're not that far off the coast. Like, they're not right on the coast, but they're not that far out. Water can't be that deep right there.
Yeah. They just kept coming too. There were so many. Yeah. So that was really fun to be able to see the dolphins. And yeah.
Yeah.
And they were pretty close. Yeah. So that was really neat. And of course I had to go lay on the beach too. Although I will say, Ryan, I was thinking about you with this trip, because I was like, would Ryan like this trip? Could he get like a full fun travel experience out of this with not wanting to lay on the beach? And absolutely you could. Like, I was thinking, I was like, honestly, I would have been satisfied with this trip, like, and never even worn a swimsuit. I mean, it just was like,
oh wow, you
could, especially with the Big Island. But I think really, like, you could have a full fun week there and not get in the water and be, or lay on a beach and be totally happy and have enough to do. So I would definitely recommend it for you. But I definitely wanted to go lay on the beach as well.
Yeah, just for the record, I don't think laying on the beach is terrible and awful.
I know.
I just wouldn't want that to be my entire vacation.
Totally. Yeah. I think you would need to snorkel though, because I mean, it's just like so crazy cool to snorkel there.
Now, what all were you able to see? Okay, sorry. Did you go to specific places with specific groups, or did you just rent snorkel gear or bring it and then just go somewhere?
So we rented snorkel gear.
Okay.
And there's lots of places to do that. And they have like a daily rate, so you just tell them how long you want it. And then I did a fair amount of Googling. I wanted to see a lot of people's lists of like best places to snorkel. And found a place that was like on a lot of lists, and usually like number one on a lot of lists. And then Daryl did the research of like, well, when do you go? And learn like you should go in the morning. That's when it's going to be best. And go when the tide is going in, not when the tide is going out, because the water is murkier when the tide is coming out.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so we went in the morning. We went to, so this bay here, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So this is like what people say you should go is near the Captain James Cook Monument.
Okay.
Which is like on the west side of this little bay. The bay itself
But this is still Kona, not, you didn't do this out of Hilo.
Yeah. So like, here's Kona, here's that bay. So it's like a 30-minute drive.
Okay. South.
Yes. 30 minutes south. You get to go on like this little fun windy road, like with like views of the ocean and like cute little houses along the way. It was very fun. It was a good drive. So the bay itself is the Kealakekua Bay. And the monument, like I said, is on the west side. And so, but at first I just had this bay as our directions, and I was like, oh wait, I should not do directions to a body of water. I should do directions to like a beach. So I chose the beach that's on like the southeast side, and it's called Manini Beach. And as you can see, it's really small.
Okay.
And we got there, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, uh-oh, do you have to be like near the side with the monument? Like, is that where the
Mm.
conditions are better? Or there's better fish or more fish? And so, but we got there, and what I loved is there was like, it wasn't even really a parking lot. It was just a little street next to it. And this was like a patch of grass. It was a pretty small beach park with hardly anyone there, which was great. But there was a woman there who, I don't know if she's paid to do this or what her deal is, but she, like, as we came in, she like greeted us and told us like, we're a no sunscreen bay here. And just for like the safety of, I don't know, taking better care of the reef and everything, I think. And then she like told us the best place to enter the water and all this different stuff. And she's like, all right, go see some fish. And so we put our stuff down and got our snorkel gear on and entered the water. And it was like feet from where we entered the water that we started seeing fish. And probably saw like at least 15 different types of fish. And honestly, like, we are hardly far from the shore at all. And the water was clear. And it was, I remember when I was a kid and I went snorkeling, I would kind of get too cold over time in Hawaii, which was hilarious. But as an adult, I think like I did not get too cold. Your temperature kind of evens out and the water's not that cold. And floating is really easy. And so you're like hardly even paddling or swimming or anything. You just kind of like float in the water and look down at the fish for as long as you want. And it was incredible. It was so, so cool. So, but they also, like, I know you're not much of a swimmer. They also, like, you can rent like a flotation thing to put around your middle or different things like that. But you don't even really need like swimming skills to be able to do it, which is nice too. I will say, like, whenever I snorkel, my body for a couple minutes kind of does a little mini panic where like I'm breathing really fast and can't slow down my breathing because your nose is like in your mask and you have to breathe only with your mouth, and that's an adjustment. And then like getting comfortable with your ears being under the water, because like putting your face in the water feels fine, and but your ears will be under the water pretty much the whole time. And getting comfortable with that like takes a second for me too. And so and I grew up swimming and I'm a pretty good swimmer, and yet still like it takes me a second for like to get my body to be calm. But I just had to power through and like just kind of calm myself down and slowly, you know, like get used to it. And then it was so relaxing and really fun to go float around and see all these different tropical fish that are these bright colors and like not that far from you. And yeah, it was really great.
Was it just fish, or do you also see a reef at all?
What's your definition of reef? I
Coral.
saw a little thing. Yes, yeah, there was coral there. Yeah.
Okay.
They were swimming like around the coral.
Okay.
Like this picture from Google Maps.
Uh-huh.
That's what I saw essentially.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like, is all these different types of fish and
like
that's swimming amongst
the
coral.
Yep. That's coral.
Yeah. So it was
Mm.
and I've talked to several people over the time who've gone to Hawaii, and like while they're snorkeling, there's turtles there too, which is really neat. So yeah, it's honestly like even if you're like it's not totally your comfort zone, I would recommend that you try it and go and do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I
yeah.
did when I was in the Galapagos, because it was like, I'm not gonna not try this. It was still a little weird. And my big thing, and maybe I just need to talk to Daryl about this, my facial hair, I couldn't get a seal on my mask. So water would continually leak in, and give it enough time, I would start to inhale water through my nose.
Yeah, that's no fun.
No. So I ended up just plugging my nose through my mask. It's like, no, I'm going to make this work.
I've heard the advice of using either Vaseline or chapstick that you'll get a better seal.
Tried it. Didn't work.
Okay. And then his mask, just the way it sat, ended up being above the hairs enough. So I wonder if it's the type of mask and how far down it goes.
That could be too.
Nose.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to make it work. I'm not the only person that has facial hair.
That's true.
So. That's cool though, that you just kind of
it was so great
and not a lot of people and
yes. Yeah.
To see cool fish.
A
and
reason
corals.
to have a car is I actually had like several snorkel spots along the coast starred. And it was like, if this one sucks, like we'll drive to the next one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that was really cool too. I'm trying to think of anything else I would recommend. On the Hilo side, there was this these signs for a scenic route, a 4-mile scenic route that were along the highway, that like this main highway here that we were driving along, that goes all the way around the
Highway
island.
19, it looks like.
Yeah. And here's our Airbnb. So like you can see where the scenic route is. It's like right next to it.
Oh, okay.
And so one time headed back, we're like, well, we better drive the scenic route. And like, honestly, a scenic route could mean a whole lot of things to different people. It
really could. Yeah.
It was incredible. I felt like I was like on a ride at Disneyland.
What?
Like it felt like I was like in the Jungle Cruise or something.
Jungle Cruise, yeah.
Just like it felt like you were in the middle of nowhere with like, again, all these bird sounds and so many different types of trees and vegetation and going over like a river. A lot of times these are just like people's photos on Google that I'm showing you right now. But like it was such a cool drive. So I wanted to share about it. It is called the Pipikio Maikai Scenic Route. And if you are going to the Hawaii Tropical Bioreserve and Garden, that is on that road. So you drive like we didn't go, I had it starred, but honestly we're seeing so much cool stuff, we don't have to even go here. But it was interesting that it was like, oh yeah, there's the entrance to it like right on this road. So it's just this windy road, you go like pretty slow on it. And I was like, are we in like the car version of the Jungle Cruise and I'm the driver? It was very neat.
That's really fun.
Yeah, I would recommend that. In Hilo as well, like right in Hilo. It's really fun because there's all this area that's like this little inland, this calls it a pond.
Oh,
just there's water that comes inland.
Yeah.
With little bridges, like footbridges that go over it. And all this like park area with these gorgeous old trees, lots of banyan trees. And then there's like this park here.
An ice
like
pond?
A Japanese garden. I don't know what the ice pond is about. And just like so gorgeous. Like just so much of this island is just the nature. Like it hasn't really been overtaken by a ton of houses or stores or anything. Like there's not much like development. There's so much where you just get to see the nature. But even in Hilo itself, like it was just so gorgeous. So just taking time to walk around the gardens and everything there, I would definitely recommend.
Wait, did I say astronomy center? Oh, astronomy center.
Oh,
sorry. I saw the word astronomy and got interested.
It's all good.
So here's another question for you.
Yes.
Would you, if you were to go back to the Big Island, because I was originally going to ask, would you? And I'm pretty sure based on what you described, the answer would be yes.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I feel like, I mean,
you've been there, done that. That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Would there be more stuff that you think you would still want to see or do?
No, I think.
Okay.
Especially like it's not a cheap trip.
Yeah.
It's not crazy expensive, but like it's not cheap. Like even like food isn't cheap there. Gas isn't cheap. So it's like,
I mean, it's an island.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm much more of the type in general to want to go to new places. And
right.
So it was funny because Daryl told me even right before we left, his boss was telling him like, oh, this is so great. Like you guys are probably going to fall in love with it and maybe like go back regularly. And he was like, no, we'll probably never go back because Cheryl's going to want to go everywhere else, you know?
Right. That's just not your travel style.
Yes. I think though, if we had more time and more money, as an additional trip, I would totally go back. If we're like, we need to go relax for a week, I would totally go there. I would stay at the Hilo Airbnb the whole time and do day trips over to Kona.
Oh, okay. So it's not that far to drive between Kona and
it's like
Hilo?
an hour and a half. But like if you went for the whole day, I don't know, it's not that bad. And so honestly, for you, I wouldn't even tell you to stay in Kona. I would tell you to go stay in Hilo. For someone who wants to lay on the beach, go stay in Kona because then the beach is like the beaches that you want to lay on in the sunshine are right there. Or if you want like multiple days of snorkeling, multiple days of laying on the beach, you should stay in Kona. That's where all the resorts are too. If you're someone who wants to stay at a resort.
Yep.
But if you're like, I want to go and do,
Mhm.
and you don't mind more rain, um,
Nope.
then go stay in Hilo the whole time, because like that's where the jungle is, and that, you know, and like it's so much prettier over there because it's all like the lush vegetation.
Would you say it was less crowded? Were there less tourists on the Hilo side, or was it very
Totally.
similar?
Yeah, there were definitely less tourists.
Oh, see, I
or
like
just
that
and
too.
just less people.
Yeah.
Like it's just more spread out for sure.
And there's an airport in both Kona and Hilo.
Yes.
But
I don't know.
Kona's the big one.
Kona's the big one.
Okay.
So I don't know like what you would want to do for a flight necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, for what would be worth it. You'd have to look at like what would make sense for that. But there is an airport in Hilo. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think if I had more time to take off and more money to spend on travel, I would probably go back, be like, going for my birthday, let's go hang out in the jungle. But as far as like, it's more of like this trip for me is more of like a big trip of the year or of the 2 years. And so for that trip, I'm going like to Europe next time, you know, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I have to say. But and Daryl like had a really good time and also does not need to go to Hawaii again. You know, like he just, because he's more like you, where like he doesn't want to go lay on the beach or things like that. And so, and he's not a big heat person either. This Airbnb that I was raving about, like I would tell anybody like to stay at this specific one if it's not available or not the right fit for you, because it's just a 1-bedroom. Then I would say stay in that region. So stay like a little north of Hilo along the coast, because there were some other places along there. It's just such a gorgeous area. But it's called the Pipikio Paradise.
And you would agree with the word paradise, I assume.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so great host and wonderful place to stay. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other big highlights for you? Things that you're like, oh my gosh, this was great, or definitely don't do that. Although it sounds like there weren't any definitely don't do's on this trip.
Well, we both had colds. So yeah, we were pretty low energy because of that too. And just like not always feeling the best. So maybe don't be sick while you're traveling.
Noted.
But the last night of the trip, Daryl had a surprise for me.
Oh.
And it was so good.
You love surprises.
I love surprises. And that was when we were like maybe talking about going up to the observatory. And then it was funny because he was like, I don't know, I think we're going to get back too late. And I was like, okay. And then like later he was telling me, he was like, okay, I was going to go to the beach. He was like, you just need to be like back here and ready to leave by 6. And I was like, oh, are we going somewhere? It turns out he made the reservations like weeks before we left. So that was like extra exciting to me. He took me to a place called Gertrude's Jazz Bar.
Okay.
It's in Kona. It was like a 10-minute walk from where we were staying. And they, for the last 4 years, have won Hawaii's best live music.
Oh.
And we got to just sit and listen to live music for several hours. And
fun.
Man, it was the perfect way to end the trip. I am someone who, even at the end of a weekend, is sad that it's the end of the weekend and has a hard time enjoying Sunday nights because it means it's the end of the weekend. And definitely with trips, it's like, although I always am happy to be home, I never want the trip to be over. And so the last night of the trip can be a bummer for me. And I also like kind of planning ahead. So then sometimes the last night of the trip is also just like packing and cleaning up. And that's not fun. And so Daryl knew I would be a little bummed on the last night. And so he made it really fun for me.
Oh.
And so this place, it was pretty small. It's a small little restaurant. I'm going to show you a picture of it.
Okay.
So this is from our table since he made reservations. This was our seat.
Wow. That's like right in front of the stage.
Yeah. There was a little dance floor up there. There wasn't much, not many people danced, but
did you dance?
No, I didn't dance. It was much more like let's sit and listen to music vibes
Okay.
for me. But
Okay.
But so there's just this little stage, and there was this woman who she played the whole time. It was kind of like it was her thing, and then she had, here she is. She was great. So they have various live performers come on, but she comes pretty regularly. But then she had friends of hers who I think also play there pretty regularly join her for different songs. And since it's like jazz, it was like very much, and just live music in general, like nothing was planned, obviously. And so there was just lots of like, hey, you want to come join me for this one? And someone else would come sing with her, you know? And so, all so talented and like really good. So there was like a flute player. This guy on the flute also sang a lot. There's a trombonist, which made me so happy because that's what I used to play. Ukulele, another flute player. So at one point there were two men playing the flute, which made me very happy to see. Clarinet, violin, and then another woman came and sang with her. And so they did lots of old jazz music, think like Ella Fitzgerald, songs like that. Also lots of show tunes because she's a big show tune fan. That was great. And also lots of Christmas music. like Let It Snow and White Christmas and things like that, which was hilarious. It was so fun. She took requests. People could just like shout out songs they wanted to hear, and she just instantly would start playing it.
Oh wow.
The person who was kind of like the host of the night said like, she's like, yeah, I've never seen her like not know a song.
Wow.
But even like, actually it was funny. This one guy requested a song, and we noticed like she like was Googling the chords really quick, and then also like played it so fast and did an amazing job. So I do have some video here. Let's see. I'll show you some.
Oh, that's really fun.
It was so fun. Oh, here's a better photo. And so towards the end, Daryl was like, okay, well, you have to go tip her. And so I was like, okay. Oh yeah, because she introduced MT Jar. And how he has like a ruthless appetite and everything. But then Daryl was like, yeah, you probably should go request something. And I was like, I get kind of nervous. I'm a very outgoing person, but in those situations I get a little nervous. And I was like, I don't know. And so I was thinking of, I had two songs in my mind that I wanted to request from her. And the one I ended up doing was I asked her to do Hello Dolly.
Okay.
And her face like lit up, and she just jumped into it right away, and she just killed it. Because I mean, her voice like kind of lends to like singing like Barbara, and oh my gosh, it was so good. So that was really
fun.
Yeah. Daryl was like watching when I came up, and he was like, oh yeah, her face like changed, and she started singing it really quickly. So that was really fun. So yeah, and we had really good drinks and nachos, and then just got to walk back to where we were staying. So yeah, it was such a good last night, and like I would really recommend going there too. It was so
very
fun.
Cool.
So.
Well, and what's interesting, I don't know if you thought about this or not, and maybe I'm making the connection incorrectly, but I'm remembering when I think the last time that you went to Spain and you went to, I don't think it was a jazz bar, but some sort of like restaurant that had music that was on the top of a building towards the end of your trip.
In Barcelona. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, that was a moment that was a real downer for you, and you felt alone. And here it sounds like in a sense, a similar venue sort of experience, but you had the exact opposite experience because it actually lightened the end of your trip and was a great note to end on, which I just think is very cool for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I didn't even thought about that aspect of it. Yeah. I was just thinking of like our honeymoon. We went to New Orleans and heard jazz there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's fun. Like as a fun anniversary thing to go hear some live jazz music. And then Daryl was like, now everywhere we go, we should find a live jazz thing. And I was like, okay.
Twist my arm.
I know, right? So yeah, that was delightful and such a good end to the trip.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Cheryl.
Yes.
I do have a standard question for you, even though I skipped the first two standard questions. I'm not going to skip the last one.
Okay.
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 So kind of, from the name of our podcast, Take Me With You.
Mm-hmm.
If you could take me with you for one part of your trip, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, definitely the volcano, but
Okay.
a couple reasons. One, because then like you would be able to go see it. So like, yay for you. And then also I would have you explain more of the volcano to me. And like, what am I looking at here? And then maybe we would take more time while we were there to like go figure out like, where can we go see more of this volcano? Where's there like another viewpoint? And again, then you could explain to me what I'm looking at there.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes.
That I accept that answer.
Cool. Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing about that trip. I'm so glad it did actually happen. I know we were talking off air about how I think because of that, the initial honeymoon and all of the stuff back and forth, and then with COVID, how you kind of don't believe that trips are happening anymore until you actually get there.
Yeah, I felt that way with this. It felt like, and I don't know if that's a permanent change with travel. I've talked to other people about this who have similar feelings just because of COVID. I think almost everyone has had trip canceled, and everyone has had plans canceled in some capacity, where I think we used to feel like, well, if you have a ticket to something, that means you're doing it.
Right. And
none of us see plans at all like that anymore, and especially travel. Yeah. And so I think now I saw it as opposed to like, I'm going to Hawaii in December. It was like, I have tickets to go to Hawaii. Like I have purchased the tickets. So like, hopefully that means I get to go, and so, but I hardly thought about the trip, like going up to it, which is very different for me. Usually like getting excited for the trip and thinking about it a lot is something I do. I didn't even book the rental car for a long time because it just felt like it's going to be another thing I'm going to have to cancel if we can't go. And so it was more like a month or two before that I started, like Daryl and I started talking about it, and we started kind of working through like some more specifics about what we wanted to see. And then it was more like a week before it was like, oh, I think we're actually going. And then but I didn't pack until the night before,
which
I didn't
is
even make my
uncommon for you.
Yes, very uncommon for me.
Normal for me.
Yeah. But I didn't even make my packing list until like a day before that.
Oh, wow.
Like normally my packing list is well in advance, and I've already thought through so many dynamics and logistics and everything. But I think regardless of where we were going, I might have felt that way. But with Hawaii, they have added restrictions.
Right.
So I was also like about a month before the trip, I had to you have to create this account on like travel.hawaii.gov or something like that, and upload your vaccination card and a lot of information about yourself. And I'd heard from a friend who went in September about that. So that's why I looked it up and did that for both Cheryl and myself. But then at the airport, this was weird because I had this thing in the back of my mind, like, what random restriction is going to change where all of a sudden we're going to be at the airport and then learn we can't even go, or like we get there and they're like, you have to quarantine, or like what's going to happen like that. And so we're at the airport, and I thought when we went through security, we were going to be like sent to a different line, because I heard something about standing in an additional line and getting a wristband. And so I was like, I'm assuming we're just going to be told we have to go do that. We go through security and we're at our gate, and it's like still more than 2 hours before the flight, and we're just sitting at our gate, and we're like, why was that so easy? What are we missing? And then so I went and asked somebody who worked there, and she said, well, at the end gates, which if you know SeaTac, you have to take a little like underground train to get to. She said at the end gates you can go get a wristband there. And I was like, I can. And which is a weird thing to be told at an airport, that you can do something, because at airports it's like sir, go stand over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
There's-
must. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no you can.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a little left time that we were like, okay, we'll go to the end gates. And so we went to the end gates, and then there was a line there. And then the guy had us log in on our phones to the account that we had created and
Mhm.
show him. And then he like approved something or other on it and then gave us a wristband. And the wristband, what that meant was that on the Hawaii side, we didn't have to go through a health check there. So it's like a pre-health check
So
to get through the
you-
airport in Hawaii quicker.
So you either could have done it at SeaTac in Seattle
yes.
or in Hawaii, but you would have
Yes.
had to have do it at either end.
That's why it's you can. It's because you
Okay.
could get on the plane without doing that.
Gotcha.
But if you didn't want to or didn't know about going to the end gates, you could have done it at our gate that we were boarding from, and there was a massive line.
Mm.
So it slowed down the whole getting on the plane process. And it was just like, because all these people, like, we're like just sitting with our wristband waiting for the gate, to board.
Mhm.
All these other people are like in line. It was a big line, at our gate, like trying to do the health check thing there. So it was weird. It was not super clear. It was definitely,
Mhm.
there's just these moments in travel where you realize, like, I have to go figure this out for myself and make this happen for myself.
Mhm.
No one's telling me exactly what to do, and no one's going to hold my hand. And I could easily not be able to do something because of something that I mess up or miss. And that's how
Mhm.
it kind of felt,
Yeah.
was like, I better make sure that I know what I'm doing. And then also, like, up until November 8th, you also had to have a negative COVID test. And I don't know if you just show up to the airport and don't have that,
They
like,
just turn you around.
do
and
they
say,
have
"Nope, go
rapid
home."
tests, or do they, because you can also quarantine for 2 weeks when you get there, but then that would have been our whole trip.
Yeah, that only if you're going there and you live there or something. I think
Yeah.
would that matter.
Yeah. So it was just interesting because, like, I was like, I feel like they should have sent us like 5 emails about this or something. Like, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
we got like one the day before that kind of had some information on it, but it was something where it was like having to be proactive to get that information. But then on the Kona side, when we landed, it was great because they just saw our wristband and just like, okay, bye, and we were gone.
Mm.
So that was nice. Although then to rent our car, we also had to show like this QR code that website had generated, showing
Okay.
that we had passed this check and had our Vax cards and all that stuff. So who knows how
Okay.
long they'll keep that in place either.
Yeah.
But they can, because they're an island.
True.
So
True.
they can do that. They don't have to worry about border crossing in the same way as states that are connected
Yeah.
or things like that. So
Yeah.
anyway, but until that was all done and we're like sitting on the plane, then it was like, okay, now we're going to Hawaii. And
Mhm.
so and I don't know how long I will feel that way about my upcoming trips. It might be the
Yeah.
rest of my life. It might be that's it. Honestly almost felt like it could have been like a surprise trip for how, like, the emotions that went with it of like,
Yeah.
but it also made it like, I don't know, I think letting go of some expectations is really good.
Mhm.
And just to being like, whatever we get to do, it's going to be great. And that's like a
Mhm.
great way to go do a trip,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that made it really chill in that way, that it wasn't like, I've been waiting for a year and, I have all
Yeah.
these things I have to do. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Cheryl,
Ryan.
what's your next trip?
Oh, I forgot about this question. I do not have one.
Okay.
And I do not know. I don't think I'll be traveling much this next year. I think
Mhm.
Daryl and I, after spending money on this trip, are like, you know what? Let's not do much travel next year so that we can spend a little more time saving for some
Mhm.
travel. And like, we're hoping to go to Europe maybe like in a couple of years, but we're like, hey,
Okay.
let's save for a little longer so we can
Mhm.
do a bigger trip.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Jack this summer, I don't know if we'll necessarily go somewhere because of my job. I don't think I can take a
Right.
week off like during wedding season.
Mm-hmm.
And also because of having a newer job, it feels like a good time to like save the vacation hours for a while,
Mhm.
because I currently have none, and I'll accrue them over time, and all
Mhm.
that stuff that comes with a new job. And so I think wanting to work more this next year and not spend as much money there won't be a big one next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see after that what
Okay.
happens. I want to take Jack on a plane at some point.
Has he never been on a plane?
He's never been on a plane.
Okay.
So I would like to do that with him. I don't know where we would take him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's this next little season will be more like the travel dreaming again. And
Mm-hmm.
as Jack is like getting older and like having more opinions, I'm also excited. Like the next time we take a trip with him, we would love for him to like get to weigh in on some things, you know, and like that's probably going to be involved in like showing him pictures and videos of things, you know,
Yeah.
and things like that to be like, would you want to do this or that, you know, because he doesn't know what his options are or what's out there. But
Right.
it would be very fun to like get some of his opinion on a trip. But yeah, I think I'm sure I'll do little weekend things and stuff like that because that's what I do. But yeah.
Okay.
But I got to go to Hawaii.
You got to go to Hawaii and get on a plane.
I know. I felt so out of practice going through like security and everything. It was like, oh, this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally, at this point in the podcast, we transition to Wish You Were Here's. But we've been doing a lot of Wish You Were Here's for a lot of weeks at this point. So I think we're going to do something a little bit different this week, Cheryl.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun that we were, you know, I was saying the place I would take you was the volcano so that you could explain it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would probably say to you anyway at any moment in our lives. But the reason particularly that I've been thinking about that is because we've actually been cheating on this podcast with another podcast.
What? What?
Isn't that the most negative way I could
I was like,
say
podcast
that?
infidelity? Is that what you're like? Let's not frame it that way.
We are starting a new podcast.
Yes, we are.
So we haven't started releasing episodes yet, but
No.
you know, as
Not
our
yet.
listeners know, with us and our spreadsheets and our planning and all of that, if you know us at all, you know that we do love to plan. We've been recording episodes, and actually next week is when our first one comes out.
Yes. Well, sort of.
The trailer,
It's our
the
kind
intro.
of intro. What is this new podcast episode? Kind of an
Yes.
introductory episode.
But
Yeah.
Ryan, what is this new podcast?
Well, it was your idea, as most of the time they are. And it's a great idea, which as most of the time they are. It's called I Slept Through Science.
Oh,
So
you
it won't-
did? That's weird. You're a science
did.
teacher.
Yeah, well, I find science boring. So, you know. So it'll be a very different podcast for us because it won't be travel related. And that makes me sad because I love talking about travel, but it also makes me happy because I love talking about science too. So basically the premise is that you're going to ask me science questions like, what's the deal with the volcano? Why is it so impressive? And I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah. And so far it's been so fun and I've been learning a lot. Yeah, and so I'm excited to keep learning and have more and more little science lessons. It's definitely, I mean, I think like it could be for all ages, but certainly I think like a kid could learn things from it. To me as an adult, I think what's exciting about it for other adults is like when we were in school, how much did we care about what we were learning? But now as adults, it's like, man, it would be really cool to understand that lake of lava, you know, or things like that. Or just like everyday things that we experience and how are they connected to science, or why is this happening the way it is? And so it's fun now at this stage in life, you know, taking some time to learn some more, you know, as a full-fledged adult. And it's like, I don't do this for my job, but guess what? Education is still great and interesting. And so with that, we realized that we are not, I don't know how long ago we realized we were not full-time professional podcast hosts, but we realized with that being the fact, we cannot keep up 2 podcasts at once with, you know, having other things in our lives and just being humans. And so this podcast is going to be coming to a close very soon. And
but
then
not yet.
yeah, you got a couple more weeks. and then we will be releasing episodes weekly during the school year of I Slept Through Science.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us here at Take Me With You, next week we'll do the I Slept Through Science trailer for you all so that you can just listen to it straight here, get an idea. Are you interested? Do you care? Anything like that. The following week, we'll also give you the first full episode here. And then we will have one final special ending episode for Take Me With You. And Cheryl and I have talked about lots of different ideas. I've talked to some friends and listeners about ideas, and I think we've got a pretty cool plan for how to wrap things up. So I'm actually really excited about that final episode that we'll get to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't need to say our final little goodbyes right now, fortunately, but it has been we've loved having guests on this podcast.
absolutely.
And we are also excited to not have guests on our new podcast because of scheduling and
just the
asking
logistics.
people all the logistics. And so it has been perfect for this one. And we've been so grateful to everyone who's been a guest on this podcast and taken the time to share about their trips. And I think it's really made it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've learned
also,
so much
from
our guests, so much. And there's so many more places now that I have to go.
Yes. Yeah. I know that's really the problem with having this podcast was that our lists were getting too long. So, but, yeah, so we're still podcasting together. We'll still be releasing a podcast. That's the other thing we've been working on as we've been releasing these Wish You Were Here episodes. But just, different content and theme.
Yep. But you can still follow us here at Take Me With You Podcast. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's at TMWI for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
You can also still email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us favorite moments that you've had from the podcast, maybe things that you've learned. What countries or states, cities have you added to your list because of this podcast? We would love to hear your takeaways.
Absolutely. We'd also love it if you would rate and review us on whatever you're using to listen to this, or subscribe and share, because we still have some more episodes coming out. And our plan is to leave these episodes out there because a lot of the travel stories are still excellent and they could still be helpful in people planning. So the podcast is not going away just because we're going to stop making new episodes.
And although we're not making new episodes, there are two people who are artists who have contributed to this podcast who are continuing to make their art, who you should definitely check out. One of them is Beth Reed Miller. She made our logo that we love so much. You can check her out at Beth Is Something. And our theme song is thanks to Erica Corbin, who is still making wonderful music. And her song that we play is called Round the Globe, and you can check her out wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we have for this episode. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above.